Hey everybody, welcome to our daily devotional for this week of Holy Week. We're going to be taking specific passages every day and looking at each one of them in order to prepare our hearts and minds for this coming Sunday, which is Easter Sunday, as we celebrate the risen Jesus. Now, I want to keep each one of these brief as possible. They're just devotionals, right? So we won't be reading through each passage. There will be a link on our website. If you scroll down to the bottom right-hand side of the front page, there's a card called Holy Week. And in there are passages for our devotions for each day, as well as additional passages for each day of the week. Today we're going to be briefly looking at John chapter 12, verses 1 through 11. It's a story of when Mary anoints Jesus. Now remember, we're not going to read the text today. So if you haven't read the passage or you're unfamiliar with it, go ahead, pause the video right now. There's a link in the description, either up or below, depending on YouTube or Facebook, that you can use to bring up the passage and read through it. As soon as you're done, just return to the video and hit play. So go ahead and pause if you want to go ahead and read through it. Now our story occurs 6 days before the Passover. We have Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, who had just recently been resurrected from the dead by Jesus. And they're hosting a dinner for Jesus. Mary takes this large amount of perfume. About a pound is what the estimation is. That's worth about 1 year's worth of wages. So in the U.S. today, that would be roughly worth about $45,000 to $50,000. It's a lot of money, right? And she's going to take all of that perfume and anoint Jesus with it all at one time. Now Judas sits back, and now Judas is the one, remember, who's about to betray Jesus. He becomes incensed and complains that the money should be used for the poor. However, John, the author of the book that we're reading right now, tells us he didn't care about the poor. He was just skimming from the till. So that's really why he wanted us to hold the money. Jesus turns to Judas and says, "Leave her alone. It was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. You will always have the poor, but you will not always have me." Now, I don't want to focus on Judas and Jesus and their interaction here. What I really want to focus on is this giving of this gift to Jesus, right? This is a lot of money that she takes and just pours out all at once on Jesus. $45,000 to $50,000 she spends in the blink of an eye. I want to ask us some questions, right? I don't really want to talk about it. I just want to ask some questions to make us think. And after each question, I would suggest pausing the video, writing down your answers, or at least thinking through them pretty well before I go to the next one, because some of these questions are going to make you think harder about the answer that you just gave. So I want to make sure you have a good answer to each question before we go on. So the first question, if you had a year's worth of wages available to you, would you be willing to spend it on just one person? $45,000 to $50,000. Would you be willing to plop that down in an instant for just one person? That's what Mary does. Now granted, you can say, right, and I will, it was Jesus, her Messiah, and she knew who he was. Right? Would you be willing to do that? Go ahead and think about it for a little bit. If you had a year's salary or time to use for Jesus, right? So if you had a year available that you could just use to serve Jesus, or you had a year's worth of salary available to use in service to Jesus, how would you use that? Now I want you to pause the video and think about it really long and hard. Write your answer down because it'll be good to remember it in the future, I think. Now the harder question. Is your answer to the previous question about how you would use a year's worth of salary for Jesus or the time you might have available in your budget and in your priorities right now? You might say, Gary, I don't have that kind of money to budget. But are you taking that idea that you had in the previous question and are you budgeting for that? Is it showing as a priority for you? Matthew 6:21 says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." See, the reverse of that is how you prove it to be true. Where your heart is where you will be willing to invest your time and your money. Are you right now investing your time and money in the answer that you gave to that previous question? If not, then is it the most important thing for you? Right? And if you're not, then I want you to rethink that question perhaps. Finally, let's have a fun question. If you were able to host a dinner for Jesus and you could invite only 3 people other than your immediate family, who would you invite? Comment below. Let me know. I'd love to hear who you'd have there. Thanks, and God bless. Have a wonderful day.